Hi, Lorne Brown here. I'm a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine and a clinical hypnotherapist, and you're listening to Conscious Talk. I am the clinical director of AcuBalance Wellness Center in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And today I have with me Nanci. And Nanci, I'm going to butcher your last name. I'm going to do my best. Trivellato. That's my
Perfect. Yes.
Pretty good. Okay.
Trivellato. Pretty good.
And Nanci and I met at the Society of Science Exploration in Denver. She was a presenter there. I got a signed copy of her book, Vibrational State and Energy Resonance, and the subtitle is Self-Tuning to a Higher Level of Consciousness, an amazing book here. And she's also involved in the International Academy of Consciousness, so I thought it would be great to have you on Conscious Talk. Can you give a brief background about yourself, who you are, and how you got involved in energy medicine and consciousness and writing this book? I think our listeners would love to know this.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to share. I have been working with this for over 30 years now. It's been a long time. And the reason why I started this study is because I have had some out-of-body experiences. This may sound a little bit strange for some, but I had an experience when I was quite young, around 7 or 8 years old. And that experience, got stuck in my mind because I had a relative, an uncle of mine, who was having surgery in São Paulo city. The problem is that I didn't know he was even ill, and I am from a very small town in Brazil, so my accent is Brazilian. And at that time, we didn't have like a TV at home. We didn't have cinema theater in the little town I was born in because it was really small. So I have never seen anybody ill properly. And in that evening or during the night when I had an out-of-body experience, I ended up in a hospital in São Paulo, so a huge city. So anyone can compare the little town I was born in with São Paulo city. And I ended up in the hospital where he was. So I saw him with all of the different equipments because he was in a post-surgery state. And he had a drain in his abdomen because he has had a belly surgery. A bladder surgery. And at that time, I was very confused with everything I've seen. And I remember mentioning that to my aunt when they came back from São Paulo. And she was pretty amazed because nobody knew he was ill. Nobody knew he was going to go to a surgery. So that was not traumatic for me in a sense that I didn't got shocked or, with any bad emotion. But the recollection of that stood in my mind. And later on, I started studying about, what is this life for? What are we doing here? How can we help each other? How can we understand each other and make the world better? For me, it didn't make sense to think that life is only what we live here. And in Brazil, we go for a barbecue in the weekend or something like that, and then everything is gone. So I started researching about that, and I read many books and researched many authors, and I realized that is a field that still needs a lot of more exploration, more study, needs to have more, serious research so that it's more respected. So I joined as a researcher, and now I am an instructor with the International Academy of Consciousness, so for a long time. But I take great pleasure in what I do because I think many people, they like to think of a spiritual life and to feel enlightened and to talk about chakras or energy, something that is more inner inside of us, that is not so much related to the everyday life, but they do that in chops in their life as if there is a moment when they are going to meditate. Okay, so now is the moment for meditation and I am a spiritual being. But later on, there's no connection. Most people just react as if they are just a physical body, forgetting in a way that we can bridge the two things perfectly. So my hope and my wish with my work is to bring elements enough and data enough and techniques that could help people to create this bridge so that we are in everyday life, very much rooted in our shores, down to earth, but at the same time, understanding that there is something beyond without any crazy mystical ideas, in a very objective way. So that is my ambition, I would say.
Thank you. Now, we've had this discussion before about this spiritual energetic body, and we have a physical body, as you mentioned a moment ago. And so can you share a little bit about, I'm going to pose the question this way. Most people, myself included, want peace of mind, want to be happy. And a lot of people are finding out that it doesn't matter how much money you make or how many prizes you get. The external environment doesn't seem to be able to fill us up. And it seems like more and more people are going into consciousness and energy medicine because they're looking for that missing piece, because the material hasn't been able to give us long-term satisfaction, maybe short-term. Now, in our discussions, you talk about we're spiritual beings having a temporary physical experience, and many other people have said this. And you've talked about the merging of this can enhance our lives. Can you elaborate on that for us, please?
Sure, I can. I think that most people, they will have some sort of sensitivity that make them very open to sense energies around of other people, of the environment. And our world nowadays, of course, it's in a big crisis in so many different areas, as has been since always, but different types of crises. And I think we human beings, when we are here in this physical body, we are a little bit separated from our inner essence. So we kind of look for something that not always we know exactly what it is. So is that very typical situation. We look for something to be happy. Once we get it, we realize it's not really that is going to make us happy. So it's always something missing inside. I take part of what I say from experiences that I have had, but it's not only my experiences. There is a myriad of experience that has been reported through hundreds of years of people who have had situations in which they sensed themselves beyond this physical body. So some people call that enlightening. Even in the case, if you allow me a parenthesis, Lorne, some of the near-death experiences, when people have that opportunity of being outside of their bodies in the near-death experience and seeing something, so they come back with such a sense of what life is about. So I think when we are able to grasp a little bit of this reality beyond our bodies, it can help. I wouldn't say that makes us completely happy. I want to be very honest. And I think happiness is a word that means different things to different people. I have done my master's degree with a research on happiness. And amazingly, there are some people from some cultures that they have such a hard life and they are happier than others that are in a comfortable life. There is something inside of us, that some sort of inner peace that we need to reach. But many people, they feel they are dislocated in where they are in their lives, like they are in the wrong moment, in the wrong place. Some feel there's something that they have to do and they do not know what. Some feeling that there is something lacking. And I think that sometimes people look for the answers only in the objective physical world. So some goals are put to us. Everybody has to look in a certain way. Everybody has to be successful in a certain way. There are some numbers that measure how much one will be happy or successful. While I think that inside of us, there is something that we need to have as a purpose that we feel that's what I'm here for. That is going to make a big difference. That is something that only I can contribute. That is something that I have special to give. But many times that is not so, that's something that people have inside of them doesn't conform necessarily what society is expecting from them. They expect always the same role from us. And would be great if we could see ourselves as something beyond the physical body, so we can think, I have some reason to be here in this life, and it's such and such. It doesn't have to be something big, and it doesn't have to be anybody to tell you or now just watching us what you have to do. It has to be you to find out. I don't think anybody has the right to interfere in anyone's life, but I think all of us, we have to be given the opportunity to think of this life as a little moment in a big existence, and what this moment represents, what we are here for. In our learning process, what is the moment we are in? What each person around of us represent to us in terms of this moment, this life, but maybe even in karmic terms. some people, and even some people who work in therapeutic areas, in health areas, they are more sensitive to energies, and they may meet someone, either be a friend or a client or a neighbor, and they have some sort of connection that sometimes they feel like responsible for the person, or feel like fond of the person in a special way, or dislike immediately for no apparent reason. And we are not taught how to interpret that, how to see meaning behind all of that. Therefore, I think many times we end up living a life that we look for meaning in things that are very superficial instead of looking inside of us. This energy body you mentioned, just to complete here my idea, I think it's very vital for all of this, and it's a little bit of what I discuss in my book, because from many different research in many different areas, even in healing with chakras, with clairvoyance, but also medical research in many different ways, in the research I do, it seems that we have some sort of energy field around of us that has received many different names: chi, prana, biofield, organ, even in some areas, many different names. I just call bioenergy, but anyways, this field of energy that we have around of us seems to connect us to the world, to other people, but also to who we are beyond this body. And if we get more sensitive with that field, more balanced, we are normally able to stand better some of the hard moments that come from life. So it doesn't shock us immediately. We have some sort of a buffer, better way of working with that, but still we have hard things to face. But also we can give better meaning, a more appropriate meaning to the different things we go through, the good ones and the not so good ones, and the synchronicities that happen in our lives, why they happen in the way they happen. Sometimes many good things, sometimes not so good things, sometimes some that repeat themselves. So giving meaning to that, understanding this field of energies that connects us to our past, to other people, to history of the place where we are living in. So all of that starts making more meaning and help us see really what's lacking inside. Do I lack more clarity about what's my purpose in this life? Do I lack more clarity about some sort of energy that may be interfering with me, with my sleep, with my health? Some people that they help others, sometimes they end up getting energies that are not so balanced from the others that they help. So it's wonderful, but then we have to learn how to cope. And people who are sensitive, it doesn't matter where they work, they end up sensing all of that. So I think this brings a different meaning to us, psychological terms, in health terms, in terms of how we can help others, therapeutically speaking. And for me, that makes a lot of sense.
I did not know that your master's was in happiness. That's amazing.
Yes, it was.
What I'm hearing and what happiness, as you mentioned, it's really a byproduct. It's not something you can go after. It's a byproduct of having purpose, for example. I have some follow-up questions then, because what you said was quite interesting to me. So this idea of finding your purpose and energy, it sounds like the current society, we live in a Newtonian idea or a materialistic idea where if we can measure it, it means something. And you're suggesting that there's other things that weren't easily measurable. Actually, we now know that a lot of the stuff is being measured, but 20, 50 years ago, it couldn't measure, but it's impacting our health and our well-being and our happiness quotient. Now, talking to people like Dr. Dean Radin, they're showing that because I'm sure some of our listeners, Nanci, are saying, oh my God, out of body experience, chakras, energy, come on, right? However, it's not the purpose of our interview today, but we're kind of past that idea that we need to prove that this stuff exists. It does exist. Now the question is, how do you develop these skills in your body, in yourself, so you can tap into your purpose? How do you develop skills so you can interpret this energy that, you're feeling it, but you don't know exactly what to do with these senses? Like you said, there's somebody you meet and there's just this attraction. I'm not talking physical attraction. There's just this knowing attraction. And you also get the opposite where you feel danger, right, with somebody. And so how do you start to develop that? So that's kind of my next question. You have the International Academy of Consciousness. You've written this book. Is it possible for people to develop skills so they can purposely have out-of-body experiences at night? Is there a way that they can tap into this higher consciousness so they can get information, ideas? Because you're suggesting that we have this physical and energetic body, and you're not suggesting to ignore the physical. You're suggesting to develop the energetic, and together you can have a really awesome time on planet Earth during this physical experience. So what are the tools that are available? What are some of the resources you recommend? Is your book one of those resources that people can do to develop? So can we develop it? And if so, what are some of your recommendations?
Yes, I'm going to answer that step by step so I can bring the rationale behind that and make sense to those that are just watching us now. Number one thing is all of us, we have this sort of subtle energy that fills our whole body. Some people sense that consciously, some don't sense consciously, but many different situations in which we say, like, I've got a gut feeling, I have an intuition. What is an intuition? Where that information is coming from? From our brain? Are we our brain? What information is in our brain that can bring us an intuition that we should take, a crazy leap of faith in a moment when we meet somebody, or we should be careful with someone else? What is it that we are reading? Or when we have a plan and we feel like something in our stomach that says, this is not for me, or yes, this is for me. This information that passed from one person to another, or that we get from the universe, right? Because we are not talking about a physical environment. We are talking about the universe. We are talking about multiple dimensions of life. Because if we trust, we don't die. And I say trust, it will vary from person to person. Someone who have had a near-death experience comes with that certainty. Someone who had a very lucid out-of-body experience, not a so-so one, feels that certainty. But someone who never had, they say, do we really don't die? And I think it makes a lot of sense that some people, they have that as a possibility, but not as a certainty. How can we be certain on something that for us doesn't make sense or we don't see any evidence? But when we look at research, when we look at science, but a non-reductionist science, a science that does not reduce us to some cells of our brain, then we are going to start seeing lots of interesting studies that are unquestionable, that points to the fact that it seems that this body is just a vessel for a moment. How we come to be in this body, when we leave, where exactly we go, what exactly happens, all of that is open to discussions. There are different interpretations, but of course, in an out-of-body experience, we can see that. So that's a parenthesis. So logic is, if we have this energy around of us, and this energy is connecting the physical body to something we are that is not the physical body. Because if when we pass through biological death, we continue existing, there is another vehicle that I should use to be able to manifest in a subtler dimension. Many people who sense presences around of them, I mean intangible presences, and many kids do have that more often than adults. But they then can see or can notice there's something of a being, of a person, of a consciousness that is not only physical. Now, this energy that is inside of us and envelop our bodies connects us to our non-physical vehicle, the one that we have always used. We just change physical bodies, but it seems something remains. I will suggest to some of you who are watching us now that you take a look at the study of Ian Stevenson, or now Ian Stevenson has passed, and Jim B. Tucker is a medical doctor who is following his study. And they have a very interesting study with kids researching past life recall. I have interviewed Jim Tucker, and he's very nice, interesting person who don't come from any background of a believer or religious anything. It's just a purely research approach that he has in his work. Now, So then, considering we have this energy, considering this energy connects us to who we are and our vessels or vehicles or bodies that are not physical. And considering this energy connects us to the environment, to other people, now we come to a logical conclusion. The more vitalized, the healthier, the more fluid these energies are, the better I will have clarity about ideas that comes to me that they are mine, even from previous lives, and things that I have learned that they can come to me. So it's my intuition. But also, this energy being more fluid, I can find more strength sometimes to face some moments of life. Because some people, talking about the moments of life, and making another parenthesis, so hard to go in a continuous flow, but some people, sometimes when they talk to us, it can be very hard, the sort of energy we receive from them. Maybe they are in a little bit of a conflict themselves, or something is not so right. And it's not so much the words, it's what come with the words, it's what come from that communication. And when we receive that impact, the more vitalized these energy are, and then we get back to my point, being balanced and healthy and with a lot of activity, we tend to be more perceptive when some antagonistic energy comes to our field. We perceive better, but also we can act, do something to get rid of those. And the more I get these energies aligned, well balanced, the more I get attached to my real self, to my spirit. I don't even know what expression to use. To ourselves, we are going to get connected to ourselves. And we consider that working with energy is the key for the out-of-body experience. So now I explained what this energy field is and this sort of structure and the role it has in our manifestation. But why is it a key for the out-of-body experience? Because the looser this energy field is, and the more trained we are to sense what happens in our energy body, in our energy field, the more we are going to be able to disconnect, to allow this connection of the physical body with the non-physical body to be less strict, to be less obstructed. So the out-of-body experience requires that we have some flexibility in this energy body so that we can detach. So the more we work with the energy body, the better we can control not only the out-of-body experience, but other of the different phenomena that we have, including clairvoyance that I have mentioned a while ago, which is seeing something that is not physical. We are connecting with that. But in many cases, there are individuals who do have a predisposition to sense these non-physical energies, this subtle reality around. And in the case of these people, many do have different types of perceptions, sensing, hearing someone talking to them, or sensing a presence, or looking at their own bodies while they are sleeping, so having an out-of-body experience, or flying somewhere, or witnessing a real event, like happened to me when I was quite young and didn't even know about that. So many people do have these experiences spontaneously. It doesn't mean we have to train, we have to do a certain ritual. No rituals. It's just like learning how to control our physical body. If I want to become a better dancer, I have to take some lessons, I have to practice, I have to put some music on and go with the mood, right? Same thing with energy. So we can just work on that. And it's something within the possibility of all of us. Leaving the body is not as simple as learning to feel and control our energy field. May I continue, Lorne? I'll just conclude this and I'll pass to you. But leaving the body is not as easy. Controlling the physical body, I think it's easy enough. We have taught myself in private sessions, but also in classes of the IAC. We have taught thousands and thousands and thousands of people. We have been in person in 28 different countries with the core course that we have that teaches about all of this. Now, what we see is that everyone can learn something in terms of sensing their energies, improving, getting more balanced. Everyone, of course, some will learn a lot and will be very good at, some develop less. But in terms of the out-of-body experience, one thing that may be a big blockage is fear and conditioning. So sometimes we have to study a little bit to get rid of something that would restrict our possibility of really seeking to leave the body. But I have received contact of so many people that say, I leave the body quite often. I don't want to. I do not know what's going to happen. I am afraid. Usually it's religious background or something like that that makes them afraid. So people do leave the body independently of anything. But if we want to control, we get some techniques. And I think it's within the possibility of virtually everyone who really dedicates.
So you can learn to do this. And you mentioned that you have taught your organization that you're involved in, the International Academy of Consciousness, teach people, and you're in 28 countries. We'll have to get you maybe to come to Vancouver to do some of that teaching.
That would be nice.
What is the website so listeners just can know about the IAC where you're doing this teaching?
Sure, it's IAC World, like in the world, IACworld.org, IACworld.org. So that is our website.
Thank you. So
Thank you, Lorne.
IACworld.org is a way to read more about this, and they're offering courses around the world on how to develop.
Yes, it is the Consciousness Development Program, the name of the program that teaches how to control energy, how to become more sensitive, how to understand the logics of all of these. One thing that I think is very important, and this is a philosophy that we follow in our work, in my work, and the other researchers and instructors here at the IAC, and it has always been, and that's the reason why I dedicate to this, Lorne, is because I think we have to go beyond just saying, you can leave the body, or just saying, you sense sometimes some sort of paralysis when you are about to leave the body, or you sense a strong vibration in your body, like the vibrational state that I wrote about, or you sense you're falling. I think we have to go beyond mentioning the facts. I think we have to explain why. I think we have to explain the mechanism that produce each of these sensations, each of the phenomena, the mechanism that can make the out-of-body experience easier for some people, harder for others, the fact why some people, they leave their bodies and they can go further from the bodies, and others, they feel they are heavy and still inside their bedrooms. There are people that feel like that. So why is the core of the explanations that we want to give, because when we try to elaborate the mechanism of things, we are letting people free to grow by themselves, to interpret their experience. They are no longer dependent on hearing the explanations for each of different sensations they have, because the logics of it is already with them.
Thank you. And the work you're doing is important. I have this theory, and I share this with many other people, is that for human evolution, to heal the planet, we need to heal our own minds. And so all the work, as you're sharing, starts with ourselves. And I know there's a lot of fear in the world. In the world, we're concerned about the humanity facing extinction. And the Einstein quote that goes like, you can't solve a problem at the same level that you created at. We're trying to fix the problems with the way we created the problem, right? And I think by evolving and becoming more conscious, and I think it's happening on a human scale, so the evolution of humanity, I think that's where we're going to change the environment, because if there's this energetic world that we share that doesn't seem real to us a lot of times when we try to focus on the physical side of it, but if we can change our consciousness and the environment, our external reality is a reflection of our internal reality, then theoretically we can change and save this world first with a change in mindset by being more conscious. So it leads me to the next question here. About manifestation, because people like to manifest stuff. Does your work allow people to use their energy consciousness to start to create more of the reality, so they're more involved in what they're experiencing on this physical plane?
Yes, totally, 100%. There is some understanding that with our minds, we create our reality. And in terms of energies, this is so much true because energy carries information. And you spoke about fear, and I like very much the approach that you brought, Lorne. It's very inspired because fear is what stops most of us from growing. Fear that something's go wrong, fear that something may happen, and that kind of freezes us. Fear many times comes from this lack of understanding of what is beyond. I think that there is one problem that we have in our studies and in our society. Some people, they don't do serious studies about this spiritual reality. I'm sure you have come across some people like this. We have some wonderful people studying and trying to help to build a serious condition for us to understand who we are in all of this reality. You are one of them. But still, some just fake stories, just some lie about the experience they never had, just come with explanations that the real answer should be, I don't know, I've never experienced that, I have no clue, what I know goes up to here. This is what we have to learn more to do in our area, in the area of studying how we can help others and study this reality beyond the physical world. Because when someone, anybody that is doing research in this area, they reduce what the seriousness of their work, they are actually, contaminating every serious study that has ever been done. So I think we have to counterbalance the fear we have in the world and the step we have to give in now with more understanding and knowing how to look for information that would guide us. How can we open and still be safe? How can we sense energy around and still have good personal self-defense? How far can we go with this without losing contact from reality? How can we distinguish a dream from an out-of-body experience? Or a lucid dream from an out-of-body experience? They are two different things. And I feel that commonly people don't know very much the difference. And I've seen many people who report an out-of-body experience and call it a dream and vice versa. So I think that contributes a little to the confusion that we have. I do not know if that was exactly the point of your question. Help me if it was not, Lorne.
I have another question based on what you just shared, but going back to the manifestation, my understanding is that you, in your programs, you can teach people to use their energy and give them tools so they can start to manifest their reality. And there's a lot of people out there teaching or doing things that are not genuine, and it's very superficial. Create your reality, and it's not simple like just do that. I think I was listening to Eckhart Tolle, author of Power of Now and the New Earth recently, and somebody asked a question about manifesting, and so how does this work? And I think it was his lecture that I heard it, but it sounded great, so I'll share with you. He says that you can manifest in this reality. However, it's got to be a service to the world. So if you're doing it just to feed your ego, those things don't tend to always work out or get manifested. If it's for your highest good and the highest good of all, then the universe kind of has your back. So maybe it was Gabrielle Bernstein. Her latest book is Super Attractor that talks about this. But the point is, you can manifest your reality. However, it's usually about being of service to others. And the key is, just so people don't panic, you can do things, you can have goals and manifest things that does feed your ego, that you do like on an ego level, and also is good for your highest good and highest good of all. It just tends to be when it's just for your ego, it doesn't always work out. Are you in agreement with that? Because that's my
Yes. I am in agreement with that. I would put it to different words, which I will just rephrase so that is consistent with what I have mentioned and that the viewers here can connect. When we are working on something that is our life purpose or is something that is really meaningful to us, we tend to put more energy. It's a stronger information that we imprint in our energy. And that stronger information kind of build the reality. Some people, they are so afraid of something that they end up creating that for themselves. But others, they are so focused in who they want to be, what they want to build, and that for them is so core in their lives that happens. When it's just words, it's empty words. It's just like, oh, I would like to do this. But it's fake, because inside there's something else that is more important. There's something else that's more compelling, or there are different fears, obstacles, or dreams that the person wants to accomplish. Then it doesn't work, because the information that comes out is not genuine. And I think it makes total sense in terms of manifesting, creating reality. But another thing that I'm going to add to what you said that I remembered a lot right now, there are so many cases of people who fix relationships based on energy work, because there are moments in which we mean something and the other gets totally wrong. But not only like in a little quarrel in everyday life. Sometimes there are big things. Sometimes there are like mothers who are apart from their daughters for 20 years and they cannot communicate. It's like something is broken in the relationship, but not important enough to justify that, but cannot be mended. There are cases in which it's almost like, because we are interconnected, energetically speaking, with others, there are cases in which this connection has some elements there that are not productive. They are contaminating the relationship. And people may do things or say things or feel things that even themselves they cannot explain. Working with energy, we can also help amending this. Of course, it will vary from person to person. I do not want to sound here like I'm making empty promises. But this happens so good. And it's so wonderful, the results of this. And people know. So like when you think of somebody and you believe something good is going to happen, or when it's even somebody who is praying for something. What is praying? It's concentrating, wishing. It's somehow putting the information there in your energy. So what is the mechanism behind that? So energy can be very effective in cases like this and to manifest reality. And for us to know what sort of energy, posture, presence we need to have in each condition, this is so vital in our world nowadays.
It, again, for the listeners, International Academy of Consciousness, iacworld.org, if you want more information. Now, I want to talk about the out-of-body experience, lucid dreaming versus just dreaming. And I have a personal desire to do the out-of-body experience, OBE, really just for fun, like just because it seems like it'd be fun. Now, I have a question for you, because I want to know something I experiencing recently, what this could mean. So I'm asking you for possible interpretation on this, because I'm an amateur. I had an OBE in the 1990s. Without trying, it just happened. And I got really scared when I noticed I was up high getting ready to leave the building and I could see my body. And it felt like I was high and I literally poof right back into my body. After that, I had a sense back then in the 90s that that's what that was. And I wanted it. And I tried to get it. I could never repeat it. Till this day, I haven't repeated it. However, recently in the last couple of months, you know, I talk to people like you. I'm doing my consciousness work. I teach lectures at my clinic about consciousness. And what I'm noticing recently on airplanes, on buses and cars, I have this experience, and it lasts maybe a second to 4 seconds, as if I'm out, like, not that I'm outside the bus, but you know when you're on a scary roller coaster and you feel it in your stomach and you're like, whoa. So I drive a car. When you drive your car, you don't get that feeling. You're driving the car, you're in control. But all of a sudden, I am as if I'm like going super fast with my car. Like I'm not really in it. I don't know if I'm describing it properly, because it's not like I'm having an OBE in the car where I feel like I'm outside of it. It's just while I'm driving or while I'm on the airplane or on a bus, every once in a while, I have this sensation like I was when I was in the OBE, where I was and I fell into my body, like this sensation. So I had the sensation that I'm on a fun, scary ride. I'm not scared.
Yes.
Is this me warming up to an OBE? How would you describe this? Because I feel like it's a cellular thing where you're becoming matter and not matter almost. That's my interpretation.
Like you are in the middle of the way. There are two components of what you are saying that I would like to mention. One of them is, in many cases, for people who somehow have their energies a little bit more loose and some level of predisposition for the out-of-body experience, when we are like in a bus or in an airplane, that vibration sometimes coincides with the frequency of our energy body, if we are predisposed, and then we kind of get more loose. It's almost as this field of energy of us gets more expanded, and we are not so well attached to the body. Sometimes we just get like, half an inch out, right, and nothing else. But sometimes you really detach. So this can happen in moments that we are relaxed, just not paying attention too much on anything and having that effect. However, when it happens, if the person is driving, that can mean the same thing. But the ideal is that we are able to control for the energies not to get so loose at that moment. So that is something good. The description you are giving to me sounds like a beginning stage of the out-of-body experience, not completely out, but starting to loosen up the connections. Right. But when you are driving, the idea would that it would not happen. The problem that we have sometimes, I do not know how the roads are in Canada, but I used to live in Florida, so I can mention about that. All flat, straight, not even a bump on the road. So sometimes we get to the level of relaxation that would make the energies looser when ideally they shouldn't be, because we need quick reflexes. This energy exercise that I mentioned in my book, I even have a video about that if you want to, yes. And if people look for how to do the velo technique, which is what I teach in the book, you will find a video in which I teach that. I think the technique is important enough for people, to gain access to it. But when you do this technique, it's quite interesting because it kind of brings the energy body or the energy connections to its more balanced, adequate condition. So sometimes it makes it more loose because it's too strict, too tense, even with energies, foreigner energies contaminating our field. But other times they are too loose, so we are going to create a more coherent, more cohesive energy field around of us. So what you described is perfectly normal and sounds to me like disconnecting, like being partially non-aligned, but shouldn't happen when we are driving. So now you know. You've got to get more, harder roads, not so boring roads. Lorne.
You said there's a video. Where would they find the video where you teach things?
If you look for Nanci Trivellato, how to do the velo technique, it's VELO. That's an acronym for the name of the technique. That is voluntary longitudinal energetic oscillation. So VELO, how to do the velo technique. So you will find with my name, or if you look for vibrational state, you will find explanations on the phenomena, on chakras, on different things, yes. And
there's a whole section on the VELVO, Velvo, or you spell it?
Velo, yes, we say velo, yes.
There's a whole section on it in her book as well for the listeners. I have another question about healing. Have you seen from people that are doing your work, because they're working on an energetic level, that they have these spontaneous or miraculous healings?
We have seen several times, yes. We don't mention so much about that because people tend to create expectations, but we have seen healing in so many different levels. Usually it starts with changing ourselves. It's a little bit strange when we think about it. We work with our energy body, the energy of our chakras, and we start changing. But it makes perfect sense when we understand the whys, because if these energies we are talking about, and that's the role of our chakras, they are connecting this physical body here with who we really are, with our essence, our spirit, whatever you call it, then if these energies are more balanced, we are able to retrieve also different aspects of wisdom that we have learned in previous experience, wisdom that we have as spirits that they are not imprinted in our brain yet. So it kind of changed the person a little bit for better, just to become more balanced, usually. And many different sort of healings have happened. Once we had here in one of the courses that we teach at the IAC Research Campus, we teach a course that we call VIP training, just because it's two instructors, Wagner, that is my partner, and I, with one person for 10 days. And so it's super immersion and a lot of energy work. Somebody came and the person had a surgery that was already scheduled for 1 week after returning from our trip. The person had been taking care of a tumor that she had for 4 or 5 years at that point. It was a benign tumor, but still had to be removed. It was something big enough. She came, stayed here for 10 days. We didn't even mention much about that, but we worked a lot with energies in that area because we knew she was going to undergo the surgery. And when she came back, nothing existed anymore. And this is not a report that, oh, it's us. Many cases exist like that. Many studies of different types of healing done with energy on oneself, on another. When we research and make some examinations of all different types of healing that exist, when I mean alternative healings that are with energy, whatever names they receive, usually the carrier of the information and the right type of energy to produce the healing, it's this energy field of us that reach someone else with the precise information. So we see that when we become more experts in a way, we understand better our energy field. There are so many things that we can do in everyday life. So there are many miracles that are registered, that there are some sort of a paranormal, psychic, energetic effect. So our wish is to understand all of these as natural abilities of human beings. Natural abilities we can all do. Does not mean we always manage to, but we can learn. In the same way, anyone can dance, even if it is, on wheelchair. But we have to develop some way of doing that to follow the rhythm. Same thing. All of us, we can. And for us, that's a very important message, because there are too many people that they pretend to be like gurus, special, and I have a gift. And we would like to empower everyone to understand about this. And of course, there are people that they have more experience, their energies are more loose, but still we have to see it's just someone who dances better. That's it, right? Not to say that the person is special or is a messenger of something. It's a person. That would be very nice when we can bring this to our everyday life, really, and then we can study about this in schools, maybe studying how kids can sense their energies, how kids can interpret some of the things that they experience. And by the way, if you allow me to mention, Lorne, some of the research that I am doing now with kids that have this sort of sensitivity, like psychic children, we can call, for lack of a better name. Children are so much more open to all of these experiences than we are. And many of us, I'm sure, that would be watching this interview, they would think of moments in their childhood. Oh, I used to feel that. Oh, I used to have that. Now I no longer. Yes, because kids have more predisposition. And if we were able to teach kids, they would take more advantage. And seeing that as a natural thing. And many kids are afraid, very much afraid, because they sense a reality that they do not know, or they have a clairvoyance, they see something they don't comprehend. And the fear would be unnecessary if we had good explanations that everybody could reach independently of any belief. We don't have to believe on anything. It just has to be a study, like we have so many different areas of study nowadays in biology, medicine, neurology. So let's bring something that would study our energy field, but in a serious way, without any ideology. And that is the hard thing to do, I guess, for people in general.
Thank you. And with the healing, to just clarify with our listeners as well, I like how Bill Bankston put it. Actually, while we're chatting, I'm charging cotton. Bill Bankston, the energy method. Remember, Bill? But he says we're working with the energy field. We are not working with the physical body. That is the domain of Western medicine. So just to clarify, when people listen to this, because I know people, there's many people that are interested in healing. In this case, you may have a desire to heal some physical ailment, but when you come to the energy work, they're not addressing that physical element. They're just helping you connect to yourself and that universal energy, and then things unfold as they're meant to be. Some interesting examples I just wanted to share on this is when they study some multiple personalities, based on the personality, when they do blood tests, one would be diabetic and one would not. So just to let you know how things can change, these people, the physical body is like a receptor, and they're getting a broadcast, this energy. When they're in one personality, they have diabetes. When they have another personality, all of a sudden the diabetes doesn't show up on blood tests, and they'll need different eyeglasses because their eye prescription changes. So it's not so out there, because some people must think this is nonsense. I will share, though, it's not that they're addressing the physical body. Thus far, at this time and age, that's the domain of Western medicine. This is energetics, so it doesn't matter what your diagnosis is. It's just about changing that vibration, because we're all frequency, information. And so I just wanted to clarify that. As we wrap up, I want to let people know that I encourage you to read Nanci's book on the vibrational state and energy resonance. Also, check out the International Academy of Consciousness. That's iacworld.org. And here in AccuBalance, I offer lectures on consciousness, on awakening your inner healer and your manifester. And in my practice, I use acupuncture and belief change modalities like hypnosis, the Bankston healing method, Psych-K, EFT, rapid transformational therapy, and other tools to help you remove that resistance, stagnation, that fear, so you can tune into that as well. And I'm continually learning. So books like this and talking to people like Nanci, and now I'm like, okay, I got to tap into this iacworld.org, because like you guys, I want to experience peace of mind and happiness. And I'm very consciously aware that I can't fill myself up from the environment from the outside. That doesn't last. It's on the inside. And so that's where I'm putting my focus for myself and my patients, and why I'm doing interviews like this with Nanci, because if we all start to become more conscious, the whole planet shifts. We heal our mind, we heal the planet. And so that's what I'm doing these days. So Nanci, thank you very much for joining me and sharing your wisdom today. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much. I loved your words at the closing remarks, and 100% with you on that. Great. Thank you.